Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on from where you are joining us. Nice to meet you. My name is Dirk Grunewald. I am the CEO of Digital Consulting House, and I would like to greet you cordially and express also our gratitude to find you guys here. If you subscribed for the following session, then you are right here. How to boost your PIM and MDM data onboarding with AI and ML. This is particularly for manufacturers and distribution, wholesalers, and retail companies who are using PIM and MDM to boost their business, to boost their sales. And we do this event in collaboration with the Artificial Intelligence Club of the Michigan State University. And I also would like to introduce and greet particularly Mrs. Sanya Sinha, who is the president of the Michigan State University Artificial Intelligence Club, and also Mr. Alexander Grunewald, who is actually has multiple functions, including the one being my son. And he will also present a couple of slides here in this little webinar. Today, we're going to talk about, first of all, who we are, that you know who we are and what we are doing. And then we will go through some definitions. I think that's always good to define first what we are talking about. So what is PIM? What is artificial intelligence? What is machine learning? Right? There are multiple terms which are actually loosely used, and they do not mean the same. Right? We'll explain that a little bit more as well. Right? And we'll also, in particular, talk about two pitfalls which started to materialize over the last couple of, I would say, months, last 12 months. Became pretty obvious that, like always, like with everything in life, artificial intelligence and machine learning are not the kind of silver bullets people expected them without any effort. Now the artificial intelligence is doing all by itself. So that's an illusion. And we'll talk about why and what you can do or what you should do in order to stay ahead of the game. And then we'll do a little bit of advertising at the very end. So we'll talk about what we do as Digital Consulting House. Sanya will also have the opportunity to present Michigan State University Artificial Intelligence Club. There are some sponsoring opportunities for you guys if you are interested. So, and then we'll have a question and answer session. Okay, with not much more ado, I just talk about who we are. So here you see a couple of people of Digital Consulting House. Digital Consulting House was started 2013 when I pretty much finished my career in corporate Germany, corporate America, corporate UK. So after my studies of mechanical engineering, I'm a mechanical engineer. I went into the data business. That was 28 years ago. Started my first company in 1996, Spanish Sociedad Limitada, in which I helped manufacturers in Spain to actually get ahead of their quality management, quality assurance, for which, of course, you need to collect data, right? The old Deming cycle. Some of you who are manufacturing might remember Mr. Deming. And then he had this famous quote, in God we trust, all others bring data. So it was all around data. Then I went, actually it was an interesting turn, more by coincidence of the things which happen in life. I went into the advertising business. So I was in two of the biggest advertising agencies on this planet, Publicis, and then later on at McCann Erickson, where I worked my way up the ladder, applying technology to marketing, which became at that point, so in the 2000s, a more in demand capability or skill set. So I applied my knowledge, my technical knowledge, to sales and marketing for companies like Renault, Nissan, General Motors, Nestle. Before I joined at the beginning of the last decade, I joined a company called Wholesaler, which was already at that point in time the leading company supplying software for product information management and digital asset management and e-procurement. I ran this company for a couple of years, making it actually quite successful with customers like Costco, Saks Fifth Avenue, also General Motors and a couple of others. Well, it was too successful. So in 2013, a company called Informatica cut the founder of the company, Mr. Rolf Heiler, a big check. And then this company became part of Informatica, also the software, Informatica P360. It's actually, I believe, the better known brand name than Heiler was. And I decided I start my own business, where I'm actually using my knowledge to help companies like you making more business out of their data. Right? 2015, we established the German entity. And we are now a team of more than, I think it's now 13 people. Plan to be 20 people at the end of this year. Especially in the last 1 or 2 years after we made some changes, we were forced to change, to transform because of COVID, right? So the old traditional ways didn't work any longer. So we had to do something different. And we are now actually at the point, especially last year, where we made some good progress. So again, right now we are 13 people, but becoming 20 pretty soon. And then you see a couple of people here on the slide, including one of the presenters, Mr. Alexander Grunewald. So what I focus mostly on is data strategy, data governance. I help you if you don't have a PIM yet or are in need of another PIM. There are some interesting development right now in this market, which also forces companies to switch MDM solutions because the legacy ones do not supply anymore what you need. And the new software as a service ones, they are not all the same. They are different. So I know a little bit about this. I do solution architecture. I do integrations. I help people with standards like eTIM or eClass or UNSPSC, developing enterprise taxonomies, data cleansing, also data-based publications, like people are still doing print publications with InDesign. And of course, you can connect this with PIM or MDM. I also train people, right? And the second gentleman presenting here, Mr. Grunewald, is more on the side of business intelligence and artificial intelligence. He will talk a little bit about that as well. We have a couple other people in the company, but I will focus now on the content. And as I said, we start with definitions. So what is product information management? And there's a definition in a platform called Techopedia, so the Wikipedia for the technology side, which I pretty much like because it's very generalized. Like when people think about PIM and MDM, they first of all think about the software, right? In my world, the software is the last thought, right? For every endeavor in life, you need a couple of ingredients, right? You need the people, an organization. These people need to know what they are doing, so you need knowledge. And you need a plan or a process as well. And then, last but not least, you also need a tool. But at the end, PIM and MDM you can refer to as a set of processes. So just having an Excel spreadsheet with your data and putting it somewhere in Google Drive, that can be already a PIM solution or set of PIM, product information management, or MDM processes when we are talking about other domains like supplier or customer, right? So it's a set of processes to first evaluate the information, to identify store, manage, and distribute, syndicate the data, right? You do this because you want to have, you're looking for one single source of truth, a place where you know, if I want to have all the information about this product, may it be the technical information, may it be the logistics, transactional stuff, or basically the master data required for the transaction, or if I want to have all the sales and marketing content, like description, short, long description, images, I know that I have a place where I can find it, right? So, so it's centralizing the information, normalizing, standardizing, according to reference data, right? So, and it's basically the central management of like putting raw data, which you get from all different sources, and product content and all related information to one place from which you can then pull, for instance, into your website or into a catalog or into social media, right? So, and why are you doing this, right? There are a couple of reasons why you're doing that. Well, the chief reason is you want to make more money. You want to be ahead of the game. So faster time to market. That's, for me, it's the first and foremost important one. There were studies being made, companies without having a proper setup of processes. It can take them up to a month until from the beginning when they know of a product, if they are a retailer or when they have developed a new product, until they can market it really out. That's a lot of time. And at that time, the competition might already sell and you are losing a lot of money. So faster time to market, that's a pretty important one. Higher conversion rates, right? And having better data means higher conversion, means that the customer is more likely to buy at your store, right? Which means higher revenue, right? And also higher margin. Actually being able to have a lot of products, to have a large assortment, means that you, and that sounds a little bit paradox from the first outset, but it means that you're not just selling the hot runners, the ones which you have fast turnover, but that you can also have the less running products, where you maybe don't have that many customers, but there's also maybe not that much competition, which means there is less of a price transparency, which means you can make higher margins, right? It's called the long tail strategy. It's actually its own subject by itself. We don't want to go too much into the detail here because we have another subject, right? And having said that, I will now hand over to Sanya to tell us the other definition, artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Yeah, thank you, Dirk. So like AI is the buzzword that's going around, but how many of us truly know what AI is, right? I mean, looking at the word itself, the meaning is kind of like apparent. It's two words, artificial and intelligence. And what do we think of intelligence? It's a human ability, like we solve problems, we learn to do different tasks. And that is what intelligence is, except that it's artificial. Instead of humans, it's machines that are embodying this intelligence. That's why it's called artificial intelligence. And the core skills are learning. That, for example, is super relevant here is AI can learn from your data, things that even doesn't, like you cannot spot with the human eye. Reasoning, choosing what is the right thing to do, like what is the right algorithm to use or making a decision. Self-correction, which is traditionally very associated with humans. We learn from our mistakes, but we can also train a model, an AI model, to learn from its mistakes so that it can improve over time. And creativity is, of course, I would say the thing that most people are familiar with in context of AI because of ChatGPT or image generation, video generation going around. Creativity is something that AI is learning to do now. And as we move on, so another really important part about understanding AI is I know a lot of companies are just putting AI in front of their product names, but it is very pertinent that we understand what AI really is. AI itself is a very, very broad category, perhaps much beyond the applications that we are currently seeing, because a lot of the applications we are seeing right now are specifically machine learning, which is a branch of AI that focuses more on like using algorithms or statistical learning to learn from data without a specific, very specific guidance. And even within that, we have deep learning, which is just using deeper neural networks, or that's a very specific type of machine learning. So when we think about using AI, we really need to know like what tools exist within AI that is suitable for our task, which is why things like educating yourself about AI or machine learning is important, because as you can see in that big diagram over there, like machine learning composes of so many different parts. We have supervised, we have unsupervised, we have reinforcement learning, but what do you use for your product? And that really depends on the job you have at hand. Are you doing a classification task? Are you trying to tell if you have manufactured a defective product or a really nice product? Or are you trying to predict how many number of sales are you going to have for a product in the next 2 months? The answer to those questions really should guide what type of AI or what type of machine learning you should be using. And being knowledgeable about these things can save you a lot of time, because you're hiring someone, they don't know what they're doing, and that can, delay your progress by months. And in more specific, what the topic of the webinar here is PIM. I'm going to have Alex talk about it a little bit more on how AI can be used for that specific application.
Okay, next slide. Okay, so
yes,
Alex.
So some of the applications that AI could be used for in the PIM environment is, for instance, automatic classification of your products. If, for instance, you have an image of a car or a live lobster or an inverter, you can feed that forward into a machine learning model, and it's maybe able to identify the specific root type that this object is, and then also maybe its attributes like its colors, the make of the car, or even the model itself. And another application could also be imputing some of the data that you are missing. So, for instance, if you have missing data or gaps in your general product information, which is very common, you could use a machine learning model to impute those values with previous information that it has seen before, and kind of like group that data together to give you the missing information. Another interesting application could also be generating product descriptions from using perhaps like a generative model. As you've seen here in an example, we gave ChatGPT an image and also some of the technical details of that specific model, and it's able to create a, let's say, a product description of that product given like a template that I've provided it to it. What I think even is more interesting is the ability to use maybe something like GPT to query your products. So instead of having to know SQL or more sophisticated programming languages, you could use natural languages to actually query your database and get that information that you need using something like a GPT model. Yes, so that's it.
Exactly. So that sounds all great, and probably you might have heard some of this content before, but right now there are some interesting developments which are disclosing that what I already said at the beginning, AI ML, that's not the silver bullet. It's not making now all of your skills, your workers, and everything obsolete, because again, there are some pitfalls. There are actually 2 pitfalls. People of my generation still remember that little game Pitfall, right? There right now, I think there are basically 2 of them. The first one is, you see that here. Maybe also you guys know that movie from The Incredibles, right? This one episode when, well, everyone is made super, and then all of a sudden, if everyone is super, if everyone is AI, ML, no one is anymore. And that's what we are seeing right now. It's there is a problem for multiple angles. Right? One angle is actually that now so many people are using these models, in particular if you're using the public ones like ChatGPT from OpenAI. The AI becomes, because well, the computing power is limited, and still limited a little bit in our days, when so many people are using it. There are people now reporting that the AI has become somewhat dumber and less helpful, right? You can now get in nowadays answers like, well, you should know how to do that. I don't have time right now, right? That really happened. And on the other hand, again, there are some effects which you are seeing now with the models, and also the data not being, and I come to that in the next slide, not being that what you need, that actually it doesn't fulfill the results, and that's a general issue. Everyone is doing AI and ML now, and CEOs, CIOs, VPs, directors, they have expectations, and it turns out that lots of these projects do not turn out the results they have expected. And maybe in some cases, it would have been better if you had done something else rather than applying AI ML to a problem where old-fashioned business intelligence would have done the job much better. That's I think there will be a little bit more realism going forward, so that not every problem for the proverbial man or person, man, woman with a hammer actually becomes a nail, because it isn't, right? Then the other big issue is actually the big elephant in the room, right? Without data, none of that really turns out the results you need. And that's still a big issue, right? So, and it's becoming now also an issue for the public AI ML solutions, or the ChatGPT, because a lot of institutions in nowadays actually refuse to provide their data, right? So the available information is somewhat reduced, and in a regular enterprise, in a regular company, that's the biggest issue, that you have incomplete data, that you have inconsistent data, that you have data flying around on multiple platforms, and that is not really defined who owns the data, right? And that is a big issue, because on both sides, for the learning of the model, right? If you don't have proper data, that's a problem. And then also the data you feed to get the results, if that is not actually according to a normalized standard, and according to defined governance, then also the results will not be good, because you know the old rule of IT, you put shit in, you get shit out, right? So hence the old-fashioned virtues do still all apply. Nothing has gone away. You still have to do your homework, and you still have to put in the thought and the work in order to be successful with AI, and then it can be a very helpful tool. So I have a couple of old-fashioned thoughts, right? And I also spoke a little bit about in my last webinar last year. There is no I in AI without the data. So in order to have that in a company or in any organization, first of all, it's very important to be aware of what you want to achieve. SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely, right? I don't want to go into the details of that concept, but having goals, having clear understanding of what shall be at the end, will actually avoid disappointments. The other one is being selective. Not everything is a nail, right? If you have that hammer. Sometimes old-fashioned BI already does the trick. Just use your common sense. Where will an AI model really be helpful, and why do you need an AI model for it? Right? And all stands and falls with data governance, talking about our business product information, but also any other master data, right? Having a defined data governance, and we'll probably do another webinar just on that subject again, which clearly defines which data exists, where does it come from, where does it go, who is responsible, what is the ultimate single source of truth. We'll make sure that you're using actually the latest and greatest data, and not having what you really need having at Mr. Miller's desk in an Excel spreadsheet, right? And it's very unfortunate if the AI doesn't have access to Mr. Miller's Excel spreadsheet, then, well, it doesn't help, right? So enterprise taxonomy, very important. Normalize, standardize data, reference information. Have your reference information in order. There are lots of companies who don't have their reference information clear, and they have, for instance, different definitions just for languages, for currencies, or the worst unit of measures. That's a nightmare by itself, right? So you have to have that in order. Otherwise, you won't have the results. So you need good data and assets to train the model, but you need also good data to be processed by the model, right? And also, models are just models. They are human. The model is a human construct, right? And it has limits. And sometimes the responses do not make sense because of these limits. So you should have a good understanding of what plausible answers are. Don't turn off your common sense, especially when you are training a model and when you are trying to get it working, right? And that means you need to be aware of the limits and also the bias. You put something in, so maybe a certain assumptions already go into that model, and assumptions can be wrong, right? So that is all very important because, again, at the end, if you are not taking that into effect, then you might, as you see here on the little comic here on the right, you might have to just steer the pile quite a lot, and at the end, you won't never get anything out which makes sense for your business. And basically, that's what we are seeing right now. A lot of companies are trying a lot, but they don't get where they really want to get to. And with that, having said, I hand over to Alex. How do you get started?
Yes, so the first thing you need to identify, as Sanya has said, is finding the specific task that you want to do, right? So the big picture. For instance, I want to specify spam emails in my mailbox. Yes, that would be the big picture here. But in order to do that, I need to get the data. So I need to find examples of emails that are deemed as spam and also emails that are not spam, preferably something around like a 50-50 ratio of that so that your model is not biased towards one area. Then you want to discover, first of all, the insights. What kind of the keywords are there in order to identify something like as spam? Then you want to also prepare the data because machines can't necessarily read the text that we used to reading. So we need to transform that into something that a machine can read. So if that is, for instance, tokenizing as in like assigning a number to each word, you need to do that in order to actually train your model. Then you need to select your model. In this case, we would probably use something like classification model in a way, because we are not necessarily looking for a continuous number. We're looking for if it is either spam or not spam. So classification is probably the right one. And then we need to fine tune the model and evaluate. So for instance, if we see that it's not classifying everything correctly, then we may need to go back and identify why that is causing that. And we just need to continuously fine tune and evaluate until we have found the right model. And then we deploy the model either through some sort of web application. Now, what kind of tools must you know? There's a couple of tools that I would recommend. Obviously, Python is the most commonly used programming language to program these models. And here are just some of the basic tools that a machine learning engineer would use. Something like Pandas, NumPy, SciPy, and each have their own different uses within this pipeline, machine learning pipeline. And yes, and I'm going to keep pass the torch forward to the next person.
Yeah, that would be me, Alex. So how can we help you? So what actually dealing with us? So a little bit of an advertising as well. So we know a little bit about PIM and MDM. As I said, I'm doing that now for 28 years. And we have an awesome team of consultants who know sometimes even more than I do and are smarter than I am. That is for sure true of the young lady, Sanya and Alexander, who just spoke. They are definitely smarter than I am. So what do we do? So as I said, we help you with PIM and MDM data governance. We help you building that governance I was talking to. And it really starts with that, right? If you are, most IT organizations and companies start with the tool, with the software first. And it's usually not, these are usually not fun projects, right? It's better to think about the strategy first, think about how you want to govern your information, your data, and how it flows, how it's being put in order, taxonomy. And again, we help with this because we know a little bit of it. We have seen it with a lot of different kinds of organizations all around the world. So we are also ourselves, we are all around the world, as you see here on that picture. So we also understand the impact of culture, right? Culture on multiple levels. Like no endeavor will ever work if the organization doesn't want it. And I've seen that many times. So, and organization can be nowadays very complex and also culturally very complex. We help you to find the right PIM and MDM solution if you haven't already found it, or again, if you are in the position to switch for something else. Some people will know what I'm talking about. So we implement and we operate as well if you want that. We can help you with publishing, not just into e-commerce, but also maybe publications. Print catalogs have become less common, but what is still very common are things like product data sheets and declarations of performance and conformity. There's some legal information. Some industries, you have mandatory publications you have to create in order to even being able to sell. And we help you automating that process. We help you integrate, right? We know everything from file-based, cloud-based storage like S3 buckets and Azure blob storage, but also point-to-point connectivity via APIs, or there are some modern methods like Kafka, where basically you have a radio broadcasting station where you have some stations and where you can listen to as a consumer of that data. That's a pretty interesting concept, which was initially used and is still used on LinkedIn. It's a pretty interesting story. We help you with the data and taxonomy and the stewardship of the data. We have a cleansing service, so you can drop off your data and get it back clean. Well, it's not that simple, but pretty much we'll try to make it simple because that's what we are here for. We are here to make the complex simple. As you see, AI and ML has become recently quite important. But again, for me, from my understanding, and maybe I'm a little bit too old-fashioned, I think the old virtues still all apply, right? If you don't do your homework, AI and ML will not all of a sudden help you solve things you haven't done wrong in the last 10 years, right? So, and we also train. I also like to train. That's also one of my passions, to train, to teach. Like you might see that a little bit. I really love that. So, and maybe now I hand over to Sanya, because Sanya also has a little bit to tell about what she is representing at the Michigan State University.
Yeah, so I'm the president of the Michigan State's Artificial Intelligence Club. Our mission is to empower people with the knowledge of AI. We are very focused on education. We have weekly workshops that are open to anybody. If you're in Michigan, feel free to drop by. And we try to bridge the learning gap for AI because we know a lot of people are interested. They hear the buzzwords, but they don't really know how to go about it. So our whole goal is to take different concepts of AI and break it down in simpler terms and let you experiment with a little bit of coding, a little bit of applications of AI. Another really cool thing that we do is we do a lot of projects that can range from anywhere from building software for autonomous vehicles to building gaming agents to, I don't know, building like a journal app using AI. So we have a diverse range of talent and students. So we undertake different kinds of projects. So if you're interested in any type of business or sponsorship with us or any other inquiries, feel free to send us an email. We also have a lot of our past projects or past workshop materials published on our website. So feel free to check it out, and we hope that it's helpful.
Very well. Thank you, Sanya. And I think that brings us to the end of this presentation. So now I turn it over to the audience, because there now is a chance to ask questions. Fortunately, we are not that many people, even a lot of people sign up for the event. I think it's totally fine if you speak up, or if you just put your question into the chat, right? So if you have any question, just put it into the chat, and we'll pick it up. We'll pass it over to the right person to answer. Or again, if any of you just wants to speak up, for instance, like you, Kim, right? Feel free to do so. So be ready to fire questions.
Hi, Kim Weinzarl here from Newell Brands. Thank you for this presentation. Very enlightening, yet semi-disturbing at the same time. I like the slide that you had around there's no I in AI without data, because that's kind of what we're experiencing at Newell Brand right now, and trying to get a handle on that. Seems like each business segment's like, ooh, AI, running out, buying their own solutions, and plugging it into data that's, not being fully governed yet, and already tripping up our current operations. So I don't know, I find it a bit scary that, this is being deemed a silver bullet in some business leaders' minds, that this is going to fix what we haven't been able to fix ourselves already. Like I said, we have a task force in place now, trying to get our arms wrapped around that. I do own data governance at Newell Brands. It's new. Stood up the data governance committee last July, but yeah, trying to figure out how do we govern, that data that AI is being, is going to be input into AI. But I'm also finding, is there a need to not just govern the data, but also govern the query? Like our AI
Yes.
data platform's not smart enough to answer that question. Please
Yeah.
don't ask that question yet.
Yeah, as I said, if everyone is super, no one is. And that's actually a real issue right now nowadays. Now everyone is running around with all these hammers of all sorts and sizes and shapes, right? And now you actually need to govern your models, right? Because if you have thousands of different AI applications, right? How do you even select? Now you need AI to select the right model. As you remember from the slide before, you also have to select the right model, right? How do I select the right model? You could use AI for that too. So now then AI is starting to govern itself. It's actually a big thing, right? And that is what I personally also put a little bit as a critique at my whole industry. Because most of the consulting companies, they are focusing on the tool. They say, oh, we can help you with AI. Of course, we implement your MDM, but that's not how you should start, in my honest opinion. Right? And I've worked with a lot of consulting companies, with all the 4 big consulting companies. I know them from the inside partially even. Yeah, I think, well, without doing too much advertising for ourselves, sometimes it's helpful to just bring in someone who is at the meta level, right? And not just down in the weeds trying to sell their stuff. I hope that answers the question a little bit.
Yeah, it does. But I do like the use cases you showed, because we are just embarking on product master data management
at
Newell Brands. And as you can imagine, we have some missing data. Some of that is description. So,
how
if
do we
there
get to
are,
that?
if there are pointed use cases we could use to say, hey, it looks like this thing is this description, to give a starting point. That's going to help with that heavy lifting of people having to just go in and, fingers on the keyboard typing data in.
Yeah, exactly. That is a very interesting piece, because writing product descriptions is an art by itself, and there are some rules for writing a good short description and a good long description, and we help companies also with doing that, right? It's all stands and falls again with a very important piece of the data governance with your enterprise taxonomy and the definition of the attribution for each of the classes and the reference data and the unit of measures and the transformation and so on. And then there's also the organization part, especially on the manufacturing side, right? Like you are on the manufacturing side. How do I organize my product managers? How do I organize that I actually get the data in and that my time to market is short? Just having the tool, just having an MDM in place, like a Stibo, for instance. I have a little bird which told me that you are using Stibo.
We're using it for PIM.
I
We don't
know,
have
I
any
know
MDM
that. I know that. Actually, I was on the site even involved with one of the consultancies who pitched for it, pitched for getting it. So yeah, again, I think here we can definitely help, and if you're interested, we can continue this conversation a little bit later offline. Right, we are happy to help.
Right now, the phase I'm in is trying to get funding for just solving one of about 25 use cases I have for product MDM. So we'll see how far I get with that one. Today, it's been 11 months and I haven't made a lot of progress, but this one's feeling pretty good.
I can imagine, because at a certain point, if you are having so many trees, the forest is gone. You don't see it any longer.
Yeah,
right?
true.
So yeah, again, we are happy to have that offline. I see a couple of more people. Akash, any question you might have, anything you want to add, any feedback? We are also happy for feedback. Akash? Okay. Then I have a Mr. Mark Lawson. Anything from your side? Mr. Mark Lawson, are you still there? Doesn't seem to be the case. Any more questions? Any feedback? Any final words here? We don't have to drag that any longer and take more of your time. Well, wonderful. Then I really, again, I know that there's a lot of offerings right now when it comes to these kind of events, and also that all of our time is pretty sparse. So Akash, but I wanted to ask if there's a recording of the session. Yes, of course, we are recording the session, and we will provide that recording actually to everyone in the world. And you provided your consent at the beginning. I should have said that, but it was also on the slide deck that we do a recording. That recording will be available on YouTube, and we will also send you personally. We will personally contact you. We'll provide you with the recording as well. Okay. So any more questions? Anything else? Then I want to thank you very much for being here. And I hope we will continue the conversation with some of you. Thank you very much. And particularly thanks to Sanya and to Alexander. Okay, wonderful. Have a wonderful evening, day, morning, from wherever you are calling us. Goodbye.